What's up, y'all?
Good evening, good evening. This is your host, Jessica.
And this is your co-host, Tommy.
And tonight we are doing Let's Unwind with the Evans. We invite you to join us tonight, and also invite your family, your friends, your significant others. It's going to be an amazing broadcast tonight.
No doubt. Tag and share, tag and share, tag and share. It's good to be back on the air with you guys on tonight. We're really excited about this topic and what we're going to be discussing with you guys.
Yeah.
Can't wait to really jump into it and get started. I tell you, it's going to be awesome.
Yes, it is. So as you're joining us, let us know what city and state you're coming from, where you're tuning in from. For those who do not follow our personal page or our Facebook group page, now would be a great time to do so. Our group page is called Let's Unwind with the Evans, along with our YouTube channel. So please subscribe. Please go ahead and follow. But we are hosting our Real Talk with the Single talk show on July 24th in Snellville, Georgia, which is a little outside of Atlanta. So we're inviting everyone that's surrounding cities, surrounding states who don't mind us flying in and getting away from the typical norm to just join us on that particular day.
It's going to be dope, y'all. It is really going to be dope. It's about 20 minutes outside of Atlanta, if that.
Yes.
But we've got food that's going to be catered. We come in there. Got a nice atmosphere. We're going to have a DJ in the back just kind of rocking it out a little bit.
Yes.
We're going to have a little after party. There is cost of admission of $25, but the cost pays, of course, your admission to come in for the reserved seats, and it gets you access to the meal.
Yes.
So it is a full course catered meal. We're talking desserts, the full entree and everything. So listen, you can't even, what's your restaurant down in Atlanta? Papa Do's ain't even, you can't hit $25 and get what you're gonna get here.
Yeah.
So it's worth it. Just for the meal alone.
It's absolutely worth it. The ambiance, like my husband mentioned, we'll have a DJ after party. You'll get to interact. For those who are in Atlanta, based in Atlanta, this is a great networking opportunity for you because you never know who you're going to meet.
Right.
So
there's also a step and repeat, so you can take some selfies and pictures. Listen, it's just gonna be dope.
Yeah.
The flyer's right there in the corner. Come out. You can contact her or myself, inbox us, and we'll get you the information, for to send the monies for the ticket, so that you can get in. And it's going to be amazing. We're really excited about it. I can't wait.
Absolutely.
Hey, Gloria.
So as you guys are just joining us, just feel free to tag and share. Let everyone know that you're here. Let us know if we're clear. We want to know that there's not any particular feedback or anything going on. We typically do I don't own rights to this music, but we didn't this time. So just let us know if you can hear us clearly, thumbs up, we can't see the thumbs up, but just
something like that.
Yeah, just say you're good in the comments. We would love it.
I hope that you guys had a great weekend and holiday. This is the day after the 4th of July. And
thanks, Gloria.
I know that, and Gloria, by the way, is our caterer for the event. We were just talking about the food, and Gloria is actually the one that's going to be handling the food, and she's done a dynamic job thus far. We went to her place for the tasting, and when I tell you it was amazing, she hooked us up with some appetizers, the entree, and a dessert. I was not expecting all that, but she did her thing. I'm like, okay.
And we were able to share the love too. So that's always awesome. So for, our audience, if you're just now tuning in, our topic today is going to be having tough conversations with your partner.
Yep.
So with that being said, we are actually going to be addressing anything from, past relationships that are maybe toxic. If you've been abused before, we're going to address that, what it's like to share that. At what point do you feel safe enough to share those experiences? Molestation, you having family events and have to be around the person who may have raped you or molested you. So there's just, hey, thank you for joining us, you guys. But yeah, there are just certain things that people go through that you want to be able to share, especially if you're single and you're looking to date someone. At what point do you feel like it's necessary to share? Is it when it's in a relationship? Is it safe to say it in a relationship forum, or is it safe to say it when you're engaged? Is it safe to say it when you're married? What is actually, or do you say it at all and keep it to yourself? So we are going to be addressing those kind of situations. And it can even lead to you feeling uncomfortable with the closest person to you, which is your significant other, your spouse, especially if you're married. So we don't want anyone, especially if you're married, to have this apprehensiveness or coldness because your husband touched you a certain way or your wife touched you a certain way. And now because you were maybe molested or raped by a woman who you trusted, now that breaches you being able to trust your wife or your husband and things of that sort. So, I mean, it goes deep. So it's nothing that's just in the past, just put it underneath the rug. No, we're going to address issues that really, unless you deal with those wounds, they'll resurface in some way or fashion in your marriage or in your dating relationship.
Long story short, we're going to address the elephant in the room tonight.
Yes.
That's what we're going to do.
Yes, we are.
We're going to address it. Look, we got some Georgias in the house. We got some Arizonas.
Arizona's in the house.
I mean, we got
absolutely. People, so again, please tag and share. We love the ones who's already tagged and shared. For those who are on YouTube, thank you for subscribing to our channel.
Yes.
But we're going to go ahead and kick this off. Okay, so why are we having this topic tonight, babe?
Well, because first of all, there are issues that exist. As many of you know who watch our program, we don't hide from anything. It's real talk. So if it's out there, we're going to deal with that. Or one of the panelists, Mike, say, "What up, Joe? What's up, Mike? Yeah, it's good to see you, sir." But listen, we're going to address those issues. But no, we get emails sometimes from some of the people who watch the show. We get inboxes, things like that. And so we also, people may just walk up to us out of the blue and say, "Hey, this will make a good topic. Hey, this will make a good topic." And so we gather all that information. And when we gather that information, we're able to kind of set aside, and then my wife and I, when we have our production meeting, we'll just decide, hey, what are we going to address this week? What are we going to address, on certain weeks and things like that. But ultimately, we want to deal with really tough topics tonight. I mean, we are. And so some people, we're may be, a little this, that, and the third. But the reality is we want to address the issues. We want to pose the questions to you. So, my wife asked a question, let's say, and let's just kick it with that question, what if? I mean, let me say this first. I want to preface this for a lot of people who are watching. There are going to be some sensitive things discussed. Okay. It's not our intent to make light of situations. It's not our intent to demean, defame, or to make anybody feel crazy. Yeah. But the reality is we want to deal with these issues. We want to touch them because for a lot of people, these are issues that exist.
Absolutely.
Okay. And we have to deal with those issues. So don't inbox us, don't email us, don't talk about we're insensitive. We're not doing any of that. We really want to make sure that everybody understands what's happening and why. But and this is a real live issue. What we're about to address right now is a real live issue. There was a person who was at a gathering. And while they were at the gathering, one of the uncles just happened to be around who basically come up and, "Hey, baby." And the person, that was just on the receiving end was like and it was like, what in the world? And it was a thing where you notice all of a sudden Unc was making his way around the room. And each time he went to the girl, all of them cringed when he kind of, well, come to find out, he was that kind of uncle. He was the type that was messing with the girls, when they were younger and things like that. And so now they were very uncomfortable at these gatherings. And they're like, okay, how do we, it was a thing where they're not trying to be blatant about what transpired, but cordial to everybody else. And so the question was posed, well, how do you handle that kind of an issue? How do you handle if something like that has transpired to you? And
at what point do you handle it?
At what point do you handle it? And even the other question was, and what if my husband or, my boyfriend is coming around and I'm trying to get away from him and my boyfriend or husband can't figure out what's transpiring. So at what point are these issues that are addressed? Because we know these things exist and a lot of people sweep them under the rug. A lot of people don't want to deal with the reality of what transpires. In some cases, people get blamed for it being their fault, which is ludicrous. Or
they just self-blame. Maybe they don't blame themselves, but this internal, or they're not blamed by external resources or external people, but they blame themselves. Like, okay, well, maybe if I didn't go into the room, or maybe if I went to bed early like I was supposed to instead of staying up late, or maybe I should have locked the door and it would have never happened, or maybe I should have not wore my nightgown and I should have wore, all of these different justifications that people go through that were, sexually assaulted. It's a real life thing. And more than anything, going back to what my husband said, this is not a broadcast to just, belittle, not to really take into consideration that this is sensitive. We know it's sensitive, and that's why we picked it. That's why we're talking about it tonight, because this is a topic we never really truly just made a topic. We may have brushed by it. We may have mentioned it here and there, but to really focus in, because the reality is there are some that's watching right now who may not be at the point of saying, I need counseling. But just by you watching this, this is what's going to impact you the most as you see the comments, as you may see someone share their story, their transparency, whatever it may be, share whatever, you're being healed as you're watching the broadcast. And that's what it's all about.
Here, my wife brought up a great point earlier in the introduction of this, about how, and we know that this is a fact because we counsel so many different couples and people individually as well as couple. But in instances where a woman has been violated as a youth, we also are aware that as she grows older and even gets in a relationship, marriage or something with her significant other, that there are feelings that are there when the spouse touches you. There's feelings of worthlessness. There's feelings of rejection. There's feelings of I'm nasty. I'm not just and this is a reality.
Or I'm not worthy.
And I'm not worthy. And so
that's a big one.
It's a thing where how do you deal with that? How do you manage to share, first of all, what transpired with you to your significant other? How are you able to share that? Well, let me say this. Have you gotten to a place, first of all, where you are healed enough
to share,
to be able to share it? And then are you healed enough to where it no longer impacts your love life?
Yeah.
Because for a lot of people, this has impacted your love life in a sense that you can't maintain proper relationships with anybody.
Yeah.
Because you don't trust people, because the people that you look to trust in violated your trust.
Absolutely.
And then the ones who you may have gone to thinking that they would protect you turned on you and made you the villain now.
Yeah.
So how do you navigate that trust?
Especially when it's that close to you.
Oh man,
that is something that you really have to have a support system around you. But so many that experience that is almost like they come to the place of one person choosing either side, whether they believe the victim or they believe the predator, or watch this, y'all, just turn a blind eye altogether. I'm not choosing either or, now, which is choosing a side reality.
Now, here, let me speak to that for a moment, because again, in pastoral counseling, I've seen this a lot, where to your point, that issue there a lot of times runs in the family. Mm-hmm. There are multiple people in the families that this has happened to and have been both predators and victims to these things. Mm-hmm. And so it makes it easy for everybody to turn the blind eye. It's like, oh, that's just Uncle Joe.
Yeah.
And it's like, At what point as a family does it become an open discussion?
Yes.
So that the buck can stop right where it's at.
So it's not a generational thing.
Correct.
You know, so, and for those who are just joining in, we shared the backstory as to why we're having this conversation, which was, you know, someone shared with us how uncomfortable it was at their family function a few months back or so. And, you know, they still kind of felt uncomfortable, but they never really truly shared it with anyone else. And even to the point of they didn't even share it with their close sibling.
Right.
But it wasn't until they had a conversation, you know, and everything was laid out on the table. But to really truly navigate that in a single mindset, I would think, and singles, please chime in. We have a couple of our panelists. Yep. We have a couple of our panelists on here from Real Talk with the Singles. What? Love you guys.
No, but, that point that you said, family often keeps family biz hush hush. That's true. But now here's the question. Can't you keep it in the family but still address it in the family?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's the thing. Can you address those types of issues in house and still keep it in house? And I think to that point, that's a great point, because I think what happens is a lot of times families won't address issues because they feel like you're talking about putting it out in the streets, putting it on a post board.
Well, technically, the thing is, what if the family doesn't know your partner? So that's where we say, is it okay to talk about it while you're dating someone and you're just casual, like, look, the conversation gets to the place of, okay, they're sharing their vulnerability with you and you want to exchange vulnerability for vulnerability. What is too much to share before you're married to this individual, especially if it's resulting in like sexual abuse in this instance? And so what one of our panelists was actually saying was, family often keeps family, you know, business hush hush. That also is a bondage mindset, and there is a lack of accountability there. It's almost like you're defaming the family, or you're putting the family out on Front Street, and we are embarrassed by what you're saying and what you're doing, even though you're owning your truth, even though it's your testimony. It has nothing to do with my last name, my lineage. It has nothing. This is what happened to me individually. And you can't take my testimony away from me, because in sharing, that's where your strength also comes from and where your healing comes from. So when it comes down to navigating, I could say before my husband and I shared a lot of things with him when we were dating. Yes, our dynamic is a little different. He was my pastor at first, but he can tell you emphatically, he was my pastor, and unless the Holy Spirit showed him, he didn't know, because I wasn't one of those that always cried to pastor every time something happened. Like, that wasn't me. I was very private. And kind of going back to what Michael said, my family, I got cousins on here now. We're a little private, okay? A lot of private, but you know, we're private. So it wasn't so much of me trying to uncover my family, my aunts, my uncles, whomever. It was just about, no, this impacted me. And I don't think I'm truly healed from this place. So you have a right to know what damage is involved and what baggage comes with me. And I refuse to put you or myself in a situation or an environment, especially if I talk about bringing you around the family, that is uncomfortable. Because say we go to a family function, hypothetically, and you see like the woman in this situation, you see the perpetrator there, the predator there. Well, automatically your body language is going to change. You might go say, you know what, honey, we got to leave. I mean, all of this may change the way. Or on the flip side, you sharing it with your partner and they know who it is and they want to address and beat them up, or be, you know, over something that happened 20, 30 years ago. You just don't know. And so from that angle, to alleviate drama, it seems like, especially in our culture, we're just going to turn a blind eye to it.
Well, you know, I love what Michael said again, because he said that the mob always handled family degeneracy in house, and that is so true. When you if you watch gangster movies or anything like that, what the mob did stayed within the mob, but when somebody got out of line, everybody in house knew it. but it was addressed and it was handled. And so when we look at families, we have to ask ourselves, at what point as a family do we decide to start addressing the elephants in the room? If I'll just use my family as an example. Not we've got that, but we have one particular person in my family who is notorious for drama. Everybody in the family knows this person is notorious for drama.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, and it's funny because it's almost like a joke, amongst everybody. It's like, oh, well, so-and-so, they, or if you hear, oh, so-and-so went off, it's like, oh, that's just how they are. Mm-hmm. It's, so at what point as a family do you address these types of evil? That's the key.
Accountability.
I mean, because the reality is you've got to be able to understand, when things are manifesting mm-hmm. and why they're manifesting so that we can heal. And I love what my wife was saying, because the reality is if you're bringing someone in, it's not that you want to uncover, but to your point, sharing vulnerability to vulnerability. It's about protection. It's about safety. It's about knowing, like she said, knowing the baggage that I'm going to bring.
Yeah. And I think most times, because you're in that representative stage while you're dating and you're looking for a partner intentionally, like we're saying, no games on the table, not whatever, but you're really locked into this individual. They should be able to make a proper and an informed decision. If they're not able to make an informed decision, then you're already starting off the relationship on a lie.
Yep, deception.
Yeah, it's deception because you're not really owning your truth in it. Now we understand trust can be built over time, but let me just have you all think for a moment. When you're single and you go into this perspective of, I want you to be my one. I want to be the one for you. I want us to lock this down. I want us to get into a relationship. Now titles are being communicated and you're changing your relationship status to in a relationship, dating, whatever. But at that point, why is it that we still have this, okay, well, he can't know or she can't know this. And this is the person who said, I'm locked into you. I'm into you. I'm in relationship with you.
Right.
So why can't we lay everything out on the table? Why does it have to be over time? Little by little, I'll share. And that's why we talk about us, because we can only talk about our dynamic. Right. We can't talk about anyone else. That's not what we do. We're counselors, so we can't afford to. So with that being said, and that was my little plug, Let's Unwind Counseling plug. So anyway, what I was going to say is, for me, I had to learn how to be vulnerable with my husband.
Right.
Before he was my husband. So that's why I can speak on, it wasn't me getting to the altar and now, okay, babe, gosh, we at the altar now. So I got all this stuff to tell you didn't know. I didn't know. And we were sitting for how long? I don't think I want to marry you. Let me stop.
That part.
But no, you have to be open and honest, the good, bad, and ugly. I would rather someone go into marriage knowing the good, bad, and ugly than just go into marriage having just the good shown.
It's about an informed decision. That's all it is. It's about an informed decision. And if you have the proper, guidance, coaching, counseling, all of these things really helps you as you navigate, through your relationship. Now, what we're not saying is that you're supposed to go out here and uncover and throw, because, if from a biblical perspective, our job is to cover people. Okay. Mm-hmm. It is to cover and to pray for, to encourage, to lead. And so ultimately we have to understand that listen, I'm going to say that that's my boy right there. That's
good.
That's my
good,
man.
Bad, and ugly.
Watch this. On that point, everybody has baggage. For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory. Everybody has baggage. So you're not alone.
Yeah.
It's what you do with your baggage.
Yeah. Well, how did that make you feel closer when we were dating, babe?
Well,
because maybe they have to know that it's not so much embarrassment more than it is being intimate.
Well,
I think that's
right. And that's the thing. It goes back to what we mentioned earlier earlier about, sharing. At what point do you share certain dynamics? There may be family secrets. Let me say, first of all, there shouldn't be secrets. But to that point, okay, see, I feel the preaching coming out of me. I think that's just fault. But here's what I want to say. And this is the reality. Please understand it. Let's see, darkness, okay?
I knew you were going to go there.
Where you have darkness, the enemy lives in darkness.
Yes.
So if you've got to hide a thing, essentially what you're doing is giving the enemy leeway in the situation.
A legal right.
So you now, because the enemy lives in darkness, every secret that you have, everything that you cover up, everything that you try to push to the side, you're ultimately giving the enemy that much more leverage.
So are you covering the enemy or are you exposing the enemy? And we want to get to exposure of the enemy's devices, not the people.
Not the people. There you
go.
When
you get over the people, like I said, my testimony has nothing to do with my last name.
Right.
It's about exposing the enemy for what he is.
Yeah. And that's the bottom line. So we've got to recognize that when it comes to the relationship. So the question was, how did I feel? I felt awesome knowing that she could share with me, that she trusted me to share with me what was going on in her life, that she was sharing her feelings, she was sharing her experiences, and she was bringing exposure to things that had been done so that in our relationship, watch this, the enemy wouldn't have leverage.
Mm-hmm. So your mind couldn't go to thinking that it's something or someone else.
Exactly.
When it's had nothing to do with checking out, infidelity,
and that's
all of those.
And that's why we have to understand the dynamics of family secrets and secrets in general. And I oftentimes hear people say things like, there's just things that me and my husband and wife will not talk about. Listen, if you won't talk about it, that's leverage for the enemy. And if you won't talk about it, that means it's a secret. It's that closet.
Yeah.
So you are filling the enemy's closet with all kinds of shoes and clothes and things that don't need to be there.
Yeah.
And so now your relationship doesn't really have anything to stand on, because what you're standing on is supposed to be connectivity.
Yes.
So we're connected to each other by our vulnerabilities. Not what we don't share. What we don't share. Look, whenever we don't share something, look, it drives a wedge further away from us, and it gives the enemy more leverage, because now that thing is in the dark, and you're feeding the enemy. You're feeding his minions. You're feeding all of that stuff over there. So any thoughts that you may have had, you feed that negative thought because you keep it private, you keep it secret, and that is not how to build a relationship.
No, it's not. And I could say for me, as being the partner in this before we got married, there were certain things that by way of his pastoral hat, let's say that, I would think that he was hiding certain things.
Right.
Based off of what we're talking about now, not covering the enemy. He wasn't doing that.
Right.
But when it comes down to, because I wear this hat, it goes back to us being counselors, and we can't uncover anything that was shared in confidence in our session.
Right.
It goes back to that apostle that you submit under. It goes back to the pastor. If you happen to be married to a pastor or an apostle, or before marriage, let's say before marriage, because you guys are one once you're married. But before marriage, if you happen to be dating intentionally to get married, there are certain things I can't tell you. And that's the place where I had to mature and realize, mature and realize that it wasn't so much him hiding things from me, but I don't have the green light from God. You're not my God. I may want this relationship. I may think you are my wife.
Right.
But you're not my God, and I have to answer to God because God is who called me to this platform.
Yeah,
and that's big
when communicating,
for those who are,
right? And I'm glad you mentioned that because that was a struggle for her and that's again, it's why we're talking about it tonight because we want you guys to recognize that there are dynamics to that. Because watch this, what looks like a secret could also be a cover up. Mm-hmm. What is a cover up? Watch this. Could also be discretion. Mm-hmm. So now we're dealing with three different things: exposure, discretion, and cover up. Mm-hmm. And how do you tell the difference? How do you navigate the difference? And the Lord had to show her the difference so that she understands.
It was more so the spiritual aspect. If you look at it in your natural eyes, you're going to think, oh, it's covering all day.
All day.
You want to hide, because you want what you want, so you want to hide. Let's go natural.
Right.
But when you actually mature spiritually, you understand that no, by default, he could not. So that was just one of the things. But there were some things that he shared with me, a lot of things actually that he shared with me while we were dating, that it brought us closer because now I'm able to trust him just as much. And it's something that we actually talk about in our marriage. We have check-ins for those who may not know, and this is your first time tuning in. Our check-ins consist of on a weekly or monthly basis. We'll talk about what we need to improve in, what we're doing great at, what changes, what little slight changes. It was not last weekend. Not this past weekend, but the weekend before, we were in Atlanta. And for those who caught that service, we were talking about halftime. So this is the time for our check-in where we have to reassess what direction our marriage is going.
Right.
And oftentimes couples allow things to pile up and pile up and pile up and pile up. Don't address the elephant in the room. Just keep on navigating. It's comfortable. It's been this way for how many years? So I'm just going to deal with it. That's how she is. That's how he is. Ain't no changing it. Ain't no fixing it. So you subject yourself and you make that your new normal. But in actuality, you should be doing an assessment on a regular basis. And that's what we counsel.
Going back to the original topic about having tough conversations with your partner, there are some things that need to be addressed that you cannot afford to sweep under the rug. Mm-hmm. Here's why I say that. Because it's for the benefit of your relationship. Yeah. And believe it or not, your relationship grows from the trials that you go through.
Yes.
It grows from addressing those hard issues. So don't think that, because we don't address the hard issue, our relationship's going to continue to grow. No, what's happening is you might be growing in something, but you're not growing together in the thing that you have to grow in. Because you're not going through the trials, which brings you closer together and lets you know how strong your relationship is. It lets you know what you can do together. It lets you know how you can pray together. All of these things are necessary and we miss it.
Yeah, miss it all the time.
So this is why you have to do assessments of where you are. You have to do assessments of your conversations. Listen, you might be 1 week having a bad week, and the way you're speaking to your spouse may not be the best way to speak to your spouse.
Yeah.
If you don't do an assessment, you won't catch that.
Yeah, at all. And this goes back to even, grief. If you have never shared with your partner and you experience a certain level of grief.
Yeah.
I make jokes all the time. And for those who know my husband, he's as sweet as can be, but he comes off with an edge and he's hardcore, right? But if you didn't know his story and his upbringing, you would think that was him by default. That's just how he wanted to be. But no, there were certain things that happened and certain things he was exposed to and lost in his childhood that allowed him this ability to be kind of like tough, on that outward appearance. But for those who know him and who have a relationship, you wouldn't be able, wouldn't be able to say, one way or the other. But from an external perspective, you have to begin to understand and stop always personalizing. And that's why we want to address the couples too. Mm-hmm. Do not get in the habit of always personalizing based off of your spouse's feelings. It could be a date, a death anniversary. It could be a birthday that came up. It could be the weather. They saw something down the road that reminded them of something that was traumatic. It could be anything. And if you personalize it, like for an example, we're just going to give you an example. One day we were traveling from DC. Or to DC.
To DC.
We were traveling to, I think it was from, babe.
To DC.
To DC. Okay, he knows. It happened to him. He was the driver. Okay, so we were driving to DC, and our son was in the back seat hollering, Xavier, he kind of goes in. Not kind of. He goes in when he's cranky.
Y'all pray for that boy.
He's 5. He's kind of getting out of it a little bit, but he
used to have his moments.
He used to have his moments. So about a couple of years ago, we call ourselves going to DC, and he was just having one of those moments. So Dad got tired of it and was like, "Boy, be quiet! Don't make me come back there." One of them old school, like bass in his voice and everything, like. Dude, like, I'm tired. I let you cry 10 minutes straight. You're too old for this. You're not an infant. At the time, he was like 4. So he was just like, look, we not doing this. You are not a newborn. I need you to get over yourself. So he goes to try to, punish him or handle his crying. He wanted to pop him. Okay. Well, as he went, I guess he was distracted by the noise. Maybe he just didn't know where his hands were, but the noise was just so unbearable, y'all. He took his hands, both hands, off the steering wheel.
Well, no, it was one.
And swerved.
I did like this, and when I swung my hand, I kind of jerked the wheel.
Yeah, he jerked it.
So I was like,
but for me, I couldn't even, he knows, if it's something that I'm passionate about, I'll speak on it. I didn't really even have the words because I was just so frightened. I think I went into a 4 or 5-year-old, I can't control, my life almost flashed behind my eyes. But that was because I experienced a traumatic experience with, being in a car, being a passenger in a car, and almost getting into a head-on collision based off of someone swerving. So that action triggered something in me. Right. So he could have easily been like, Jess, it ain't that serious, or you overreacting, or he could have really minimized truly how I felt. And with that, it had nothing to do with his inability to drive. It didn't have nothing to do with his parenting, his punishment. It had nothing to do with that. The enemy would have it to be where his mind would be focused at, but it wasn't like that. And he was really able to say, okay, babe, I apologize. I'm sorry. And he knew about the situation, but I think the Holy Spirit had to remind him of that once. Was that true?
Once the car, and I asked her, after a few minutes, it was just quiet.
I couldn't stop crying, you guys. I was bawling,
and I said, babe, was that a trigger? Did that bring back a memory for you?
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah. And she just shook her head. She didn't say it. She was still crying. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for that.
But I had never experienced that ever since the trauma transpired. So for me, it was like, oh gosh, I thought I was over. I never had to deal with it again. So you just think, okay, thank God I lived through it.
Right.
On the other side of it, that person's no longer involved. You just think, you count your blessings, right? But what if the person you're connected to, no harm, no foul, they do something and it triggers that trauma that you experience?
That part.
How do you handle it there? Do you approach it, when it happens? Because in this instance, I was lost for words. I really couldn't. And sometimes that could be where you're not able to articulate what happened.
Right.
Or they could either get offended. If they're not in the mature state, they could get offended by, why am I just now finding this out?
Right.
or I have to, this is a good one, you're punishing me for someone else's mistakes.
Ooh.
They're not me. They don't have to be you. They don't have to be you at all whatsoever. So that's what I say, like what I'm saying as far as personalizing it. You have to get to the place where you're not always personalizing everything, every reaction your spouse or your partner has. But it's important to have those conversations.
You have to be able to know your partner well enough to understand their body language, their chemistry, their looks, their reactions. And it's why we kind of went earlier when we talked about, being in a function and maybe, someone's navigating in the room and you've got to be able to say, okay, I noticed that your body language shifted. I noticed your observant. But that's here, listen, what is the purpose of you being in a relationship with someone if you're not going to pay them any attention? Why are you in a relationship? Why are you even married if you're not going to truly focus on the person that you say you love? Well, let me take it a step further. I'm really going to dig into this one now. How could you be in a relationship with someone, married to someone, but yet your job, your ministry, your career actually comes before your spouse? That's very selfish. That's very selfish and demeaning. You are literally wasting another person's time because you are not taking the time to truly make that person a priority, to truly make that person intentionally feel loved, needed, and cared for. So why are you even in that kind of a situation? Now, if you're still single, hey, by all means, I get that. But when you get to a place where, okay, this relationship has now gone to a whole different level and you're telling this person I'm committed to you, at this point, when does that level of commitment supersede every other thing that you're doing, every other thing that you've done? And that person becomes the priority. Mm-hmm. So this is why we're having these types of conversations so that we can really help you understand that, and look, and I get, oh, your money, you got to make your money. Oh, I get you got to do this, you got to do that. And none of that has to change just because you are now committed to someone. Yes. But when it comes to these issues, when you are truly, when you have, been through some things, you really have to assess. I love that comment because that's exactly right. It goes back to, are you ready to be in a relationship? Because you truly have to assess. You hear a lot of people, there's a show, what is that show? The Married Show. Married at First Sight. Married at First Sight, where these people come together and they decide to get married on a whim. They've never met the person before, and when they get interviewed, and when they get interviewed, almost every single one of them to a man said, I'm ready to be a wife. I'm ready to be a husband. I've been single long enough. And then they get into this relationship with these people. They're not in a relationship 2 weeks, and they ready to get out. Yeah. And it's like, you said you was ready, but you didn't consider the cost. You didn't consider the other person's needs. You were more concerned with your own needs. You didn't consider that maybe you'd have to put the other person first now. Yeah. You didn't consider maybe you'd have to switch jobs. You didn't consider maybe you have to deal with that person's pet. And you don't like pets. Yeah. See, all of these things. So this is why we talk about addressing difficult issues, because again, and we talk about this all the time. These are things that need to be dealt with at the beginning of your relationship. Absolutely. When you first meet this person, you need to have the questions in order. You need to be asking questions. You need to be trying to find out if there's the proper compatibility. You need to find out if who this person is, how this person is. You got to know what's going on. Yeah. And if you don't know what's going on, you can't blame the other person all the time. You have to take some accountability for your decision.
I can't blame them most of the time.
You can't. You got to take accountability and responsibility for your lack of investigation.
Oh, so you mean like on the singles, how they brought up the questionnaire, Markeith brought up the questionnaire on Real Talk with the singles.
But that right there, y'all.
So you're okay with the questionnaire?
I was okay from the very get-go, because again, for men, we got to go through that. And it is such an unfair. Listen, we had one of the singles who mentioned that he's got a questionnaire, and the ladies on the panel just were not feeling that at all. They were very upset. And I kind of took off to that, because I'm like, for a man, women have a checklist of what they expect for a man. And then when you hear a man say that he's got a checklist, the women were upset about that. And I'm like, that's not good. But the reality is, we have to understand that questions needs to be asked at the beginning.
Yes.
This is why we have what that terminology now called situationships, where people are getting into situations that are supposed to be relationships. Yeah. But because they didn't ask questions, because they didn't investigate.
Or another word. That's a whole nother topic.
Because they didn't pray, for heaven's sake. I mean, it's some of these things that you need to do before getting in a relationship with somebody. I always tell people, start out as friends first. Okay, if you start out as friends, you can ask all the questions that needs to be asked, and then determine you need to determine if the friendship can go to the next level.
Yes.
But what's happening is you've got people coming in trying to go to the next level, and they haven't even become friends yet.
Yeah.
So it's the friendship that my wife and I are friends before anything.
We sure are, baby. You my friend?
Look, I love that. I love that. Oh, man, I love that. Look at this. Look, Dustin said, I had a checklist. The Lord told me to fulfill the checklist, and he would send. See, that.
Oh, but the checklist was for you, right? Because you're the head. Oh, that's a whole other topic.
But that's bottom line. That's it.
You have to.
So it's necessary to have the checklist and to know where you are, what you are, and how you are as the man.
Yes.
So that when it's time to get in a relationship, you have already fulfilled what God needs you to fulfill. Now he can bring you that thing that's going to complete
and
the whole situation. And you're not going to
sabotage it.
Exactly. So people get into these situations and they haven't even developed a friendship yet.
Yeah.
And then they wonder why it ends. And our job is to help people understand that the end goal is not divorce. The end goal is not breaking up, because I've been saying this for years. I say it all the time. When you practice divorce, it's inevitable you'll end up divorced. Well, let me explain that.
Oh, please. Because listen, before he goes there, this helped me. Like, he checked your girl, forget the checklist. He checked me in our dating life because of the very thing he's getting ready to say.
Watch this, because what happens is when you're dating your boyfriend and your girlfriend, you're dating, or you get a boyfriend, he does something you don't like, you break up with him. You get another boyfriend, he does something you don't like, you break up with him. You get another boyfriend, he does something you don't like, you break up with him. So what you've been doing is practicing the art of divorce. So now when you get into a marriage, your husband does something that you don't like, and the first thing you want to do is divorce, because you practice divorce your whole entire dating relationship. You don't know how to stay together. You don't know how to stay committed. You don't know how to work through issues. You don't know how to work through problems, because all you've done is practice running. And so we've got to get to a place of understanding what staying means. Yeah. What staying put, what staying covenant, new life forever. Covenant means you there. You're not going anywhere. And so when you keep practicing divorce, it's inevitable that eventually you'll end up divorced, because that's all you practice. That's all your habits were. That's all your hobbies was running and divorcing. And so now when the true commitment comes, you haven't put in enough fortitude to stay and stand when it's really time to stand.
Yeah.
And so my wife and I do what we do here, and God has given us this platform to help people understand how to stand, to help people understand how to have joy, to help people understand how to have peace, to help people understand how to be whole, because there's a lot of brokenness out here trying to date.
Yep.
And so we're trying to get people whole. So if you want to date, but date whole. Don't date broken.
And my thing is, are you dating for your own selfish desires, or are you dating with the purpose of, I'm going to fix me and I'm going to submit myself in order to be completely healed before bringing someone innocent into my mess?
That's why being whole is so important. Because going back to what my wife said, when you have baggage, when you bring somebody in, guess what? Their stuff now goes in your suitcase too. When my wife and I go on trips, we share one suitcase anyway. We take a few suitcases, but we do share at least one suitcase. Y'all know it, because she got a bag for shoes and she got a bag for makeup, but we share at least one suitcase. So that means that we both have clothes in the suitcase. And so for your life, when you come together with someone,
be in agreement for a plan, y'all.
Listen.
Because them luggage fees add up.
See, you speaking my language now. See, she speak my language. The Lord can bless
about
with
the weight, and I'm like, what the weight got to do with anything?
I have been looking at airplanes for the longest. Y'all don't know that, but she knows that. How many years I've been talking about that? Because back when I was doing
2012.
Yeah, I was back with. Listen, I literally looked at some.
9 years.
I was just close to leasing a jet. So, yes, get me in that point right now. We can do that, baby. And I won't have to worry about sharing suitcases with you. I can just throw the stuff in the trunk. But the reality is, guys, when you're dealing with these issues, we've got to get to a place of understanding. We got to talk. We've got to communicate. We have to share. We have to be open. And we have to allow healing to take place. Listen, if you have brokenness in your life, I encourage you to get some counsel. Get some consultation. The Bible says that there's safety in the multitude of counsel. So get you some people who can help you make proper decisions. Get you some people who can help you navigate through the issues that you may have in your life. Yeah. Get you some people who will pray for you. Get you some people, watch this, who are going to speak truth to you. Everybody's not going to be your yes man. They're not supposed to be your yes man. You need some people to tell you no. You need some people to tell you that you were wrong. You need some people to tell you to sit them hips down. You need some people like that in your corner, because those are people that are considered safe. Yeah. That's why it says there's safety in a multitude of counsel. That means you've got various people in your corner who are going to speak truth to you, but they're also speaking life to you. And as you do this, you'll begin to heal. And when you begin to heal, you now can begin to date with purpose, for purpose, on purpose. But if you're not healed, you don't need to be dating. You need to allow yourself to become whole first. And I know that's hard. And I know that a lot of people don't want to hear that. That's hard to do. But listen, it's better than you leading a string of brokenness all over the city. Got folks broken all over the place because of the fact that you're not healed, because you're not healthy. You've got to get to the place where you surround yourself with proper people who love you. Listen, when people love you, they're going to tell you the truth.
Yes.
I promise you. Listen, if I love you, you don't hear nothing but truth from me. My wife tells me sometimes, baby, you too hard. Baby, you too hard. Okay, but I love them. If I didn't love you, I wouldn't say anything to you at all. But it's the love that I have for most people that compels me to speak the truth to you. It's the love that compels me to tell you you're wrong if you're wrong. Mm-hmm. It's the love that compels me to tell you you need to go left because you're veering right. Yeah. That's out of love. So listen, we are coming up upon a close here in a couple of minutes. Real quick, share the announcement again. July 24th is coming up very rapidly. We've got limited space. But tickets are $25, and you can go to, my wife is going to put the Cash App information on there. Please come out and visit us in Atlanta. We're going to be live, studio audience. We're going to, hey, Dustin, I'm going to be in Georgia, July 24th. We need to get together, brother. But yeah, we're going to be there July 24th in the Atlanta area doing the Singles Talk panel. And again, the Singles Talk panel is the panel of singles that we have. We're inviting married people to come out. We're inviting single people to come out. Let's talk together, be part of our special guest studio audience. It's going to be pre-recorded. We're going to have food. It's a catered event.
Yes.
We're going to have a DJ there, after party. It's going to be amazing.
And this is not just for singles. This is for married couples too, because every couple who knows anything about marriage, whether you're married, whether you're divorced, whether you're widowed, you've had experiences with being married and know that marriage, you have to show up for every day, even when you don't feel like it.
Man, that part. Well,
when you're single, you only got to worry about me, you, yourself, and I.
Me, myself, and I.
But when you're married, you're sharing this space with someone. So we want married couples to come out, share your experiences, share whatever the Lord places on your heart to share, because you have something to pour into someone else too.
Yeah.
And you never know what situation they're in.
Yes.
It could be a blended family. It could be someone on the verge of divorce, separate, whatever. But just you being there and sharing your testimony, they don't feel like their situation is just unique.
Listen.
And it's like, no.
Married people, the singles need you.
Yes.
Singles, the married people need you.
Why singles are you valuable? Because married people can get stuck in their ways.
They can get stagnant.
Especially how many years you've been together.
Yes.
You can end up taking your spouse for granted. It happens all the time.
All the time.
So yes, you have something to impart into married couples, and married couples, you have something to impart in singles. No more division, no more separation.
Let's come together.
Let's come together.
Let's
and this
unify.
is what this is all about.
That's it. Well, look,
absolutely.
We love you guys. It's been an awesome show tonight. Dustin, we love you guys. Hope you're doing an awesome job down there in the Georgia area. Gloria, we can't wait to get back down there for some more of your delicious food.
Thank you. For those who are watching via YouTube, please subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. Let's unwind with the Evans.
That's right. Hey,
all right.
You guys have a great night. We love you guys. God bless you.